Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for The Nun. So The Nun is the fifth film in the Conjuring franchise. The first Conjuring movie came out in 2013 to massive box office success. So because of that, they decided that they were going to be the first horror cinematic universe. So they came out with Annabelle, and then they came out with The Conjuring 2, they came out with Annabelle 2, and now they have The Nun. And coming up soon, they have Annabelle 3, and they also have The Crooked Man, and they have The Conjuring 3, so this cinematic universe isn't dying down. They have more and more movies coming out, which is quite unfortunate. So The Nun, it follows the story of this man who is a priest and this young woman. She's like her late teens. She's probably like 16 or 17, and she's about to become a nun, but she is not quite all the way there yet. And she goes along with him. She's chosen for really dumb reasons. Like, they try to give a reason as to why, and then they completely ignore it and say, oh, that's not the actual reason. But it's like God decided there's a strong reason why, even though there definitely isn't. And they go to investigate this one temple place where there was where one nun hung themselves, and that's the entire plot of the movie. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, there are not more plot points that happen throughout the movie. Usually with a thin plot like that, that's like the first 20 minutes, and it is just the first 20 minutes, and then the next 70 minutes, literally nothing happens that entire time. Like, the nun walks around. Not like the young nun. Like, she looks at things, and she tries to figure things out, and the priest guy also just looks around. And, you know, I wasn't looking forward to this movie going in. Obviously, it's a Conjuring movie, but this was way worse than I thought it would be. The Nun, I will say it right here, is the worst movie of the year. And I strongly believe that it will stay the worst movie of the year. This is worse than the Happy Time Murders. This is even worse than Slender Man. Slender Man was a movie I reviewed just a few weeks ago. I'm not actually sure if I came out with a review for it or not. But that movie was atrocious. It was horrible. And the thing is that at least that movie had enough, I'll call it creativity. It's not actual creativity, but it cared enough to actually have some interest going on with Slender Man. There were certain rules that they set up with Slender Man, like the bell rings 3 times and then Slender Man comes out. And, you know, they were inconsistent and completely horrible, and they didn't match up at all, but at least they had some rules there. The Nun doesn't even have that. I wanted some crazy rules for how, like, the demonic nun worked, or how the evil spirit worked there, and you didn't get that. Instead, scenes of people walking around. This is probably the most boring film I have seen in years. It's dreadful. I don't know if I've seen a movie as boring, because movies this bad usually are funny because of how bad they are, or their level of atrocity is at least interesting to watch just to see how a movie can be that bad. This one doesn't have that. It's just straight up boring and horrible. Just deadening boring, I guess. Like, deadening, I don't know if that's the right word to use. Deadening is what I mean. Deadening boring, because it's on that level. You feel dead after coming out of this movie. You feel absolutely dead. You feel tired. You feel exhausted. It's horrible. My theater recently built these new recliner chair seats into them. If you've ever been to a Cinemark with recliner chairs, you've sat in them, and they're very nice. And thankfully, because of those recliner chairs, I was able to actually nap during The Nun. So I missed probably 10 or 15 minutes of this movie, but it was absolutely worth it. The movie is so overlong. It's like a short film. It should have been a 30-minute short film, but it's feature length because they want to make money. And the way that it actually ends up relating to The Conjuring, I watched the first Conjuring to try to figure it out. It's stupid. And the entire movie, like, when it gets to the climax, when the plot finally kicks in and something finally happens, it's also completely horrible. It's horribly shot, and the way that they resolve the story, I'm not gonna spoil it, but the way that they attack the nun, the demonic nun, is horrible, and the way that they actually resolve it is so odd. It's such a weird choice that I actually started laughing in the theater. At least I had the ability to laugh at that scene, because the rest of this movie, I was fighting to stay awake. The Nun is a disaster of a movie. People don't seem to think it's that bad. People don't put it on the level that I put it. They don't put it even worse than Slender Man. I think it is. I think that this is one of the worst movies of the entire year. It's a complete bore. You will leave it dead, feeling tired. And it's a shame that this is the second highest opening weekend for a movie in September ever. It made $55 million and it did not deserve a single penny of it. This is the type of movie that should be forgotten. And unfortunately, it's not, so they're going to continue to make the Conjuring spin-offs that are horrible. I will give The Nun a 1 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for The Nun. So, what are your thoughts on this film, or what do you think of the other Conjuring films? Comment in the comment section below and let me know. I'm Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.